it feels incredible.
Hello and welcome everyone to this edition of FOF Live presented by La Pop. As always, you can check out La Pop in their Doral location, Instagram or on Twitter. And we had a big week, Marlins fans, and also a big day finishing off Rule 5, the winter meetings. So let me introduce everyone. I'm Daniel, the host. We have Kevin, we have Eli, and coming back, last time we saw him was the MLB amateur draft, so we had to bring him back for another draft. The Rule 5 one, Jab. How we feeling, Jab? Rule 5, we'll get into all that, but how you feeling post-winter meetings, post-Rule 5?
Feeling good, man. Thank you guys for having me back. Great to be with, these awesome guys like you, and really happy with the Rule 5. It does stink to see Nasim Nunez go, but I'm very happy that they were able to retain Banfield, Johnston, and Arias. So, it sucks that Nunez was the guy to go, but I think, in this scenario, the positives, completely outweigh the negative of losing Nunez. So,
yeah, I don't see the resemblance between Jab and Peter Pratt that John is bringing up here, but
yeah, a little bit.
Just what a comp, though. That's just
unreal.
Comp.
You take it.
You gotta take those. You gotta take those when you can get it.
Exactly.
Again, the man behind us taking in the Rule 5 draft. We'll start off with that. Obviously, the biggest news happening in baseball right now is Nasim Nunez. So we'll get into that. Hop into it. The Marlins did not take anyone in the Rule 5 major league portion of the draft, but a player was taken from them, Nasim Nunez, who I think was not the player that a lot of people thought the Marlins were going to get taken. A lot of talk of Troy Johnston, Will Banfield, Arias, another guy, underrated pitcher there for the Marlins. But Nasim Nunez went from the Arizona Fall League MVP of the All-Star game, or the Futures game, to now being taken and going to all teams, the Washington Nationals in the division. A player that they're going to have to probably see now for the foreseeable future. Kevin, what does Nasim Nunez bring to the Nationals, and what does this maybe take out of the Marlins system?
Yeah, it takes out their best defensive infielder out of the organization. I think we could easily start with that. I mean, to say that this guy is a good defender, I think is an understatement. He's a really good defender, and he now comes into Washington arguably as the best defensive shortstop. No knock on C.J. Abrams. He had a great season for them, and I hope he continues to do great stuff for that team, one of the young stars in the game. But I'm interested to see how he fits into this Nationals team. I was looking at it before, really just seeing maybe they're bringing him to play second base, but there's Luis Garcia's there already. He's still pretty young, and Garcia's never played third. So it's a really weird situation for Nasim. I was talking to Eli off camera, before we started, and I obviously it's the educated guess, but I find it hard to think Nasim Nunez would be on the major league team for the entirety of a season. It's just hard to have someone like him who, as we all know, really his offense still, I don't personally think can translate to the major leagues just yet. Still has a lot more developing to go. He's essentially skipping AAA here in this case, and that's something big there. Another level at least to get more time play, and wish him nothing but the best. He's a cool guy, and right now he slots in at the Nationals bench, but third base is definitely a need for this Nationals team. I don't think they really want to go out there with Carter Kieboom, so we'll see what happens there. But definitely a little shock Nasim was taken, especially this early and by the Nationals. You would have expected maybe another team to take him, but apparently there was steam going on a name like Nasim and Will Banfield to possibly be taking, and one of them does go. And obviously, I think we'll talk a little bit about the Marlins, who they got, but it shouldn't surprise anyone that they passed on their major league pick.
Yeah, it's not a huge surprise. I would have him going into the draft, I had him kind of number 2 behind Troy in terms of guys that were most vulnerable to go, because it's not just one standout tool, it's also the speed on top of the defense. The defense is great at a premium position, and he's just such a smart and aggressive and efficient base runner as well. And that adds up to a lot of value. He's young enough, but still just 23 years old. He'll be 23 for most of next year, that you can dream of something clicking with the offense. It's such a small frame, and he's mostly filled out that frame right now, like 5'9", and he's built pretty well. It just does not translate to much good quality contact whatsoever. Aside from, I think this year he set a career high in homers with what, five of those, and there are some moments where it shows up, but it's just, even on a lot of his other contact, it's singles and it's walks and it's just nothing else whatsoever. It's so unusual to see a player now this deep into his pro career where his career slugging percentage is in the 200s. When you see that in the major leagues, you rarely see an everyday player that slugs in the 200s in the majors. And if he's doing it in the minors, he's doing it at the AA level after spending some of the previous year at AA. As young as he is, like it's hard to be really optimistic unless there's a dramatic change in mechanics or something that brings out more impact on the ball. As good as you play defense and base running, can't really cover that to be anything close to a regular player. As Kevin points out, the idea is not really to have him play regularly this first year. You just want to stash him on your roster and have him be somewhat productive and coach him up during that course of the season, use him strategically off the bench in some situations during the year to maybe help you win games. And the idea is to have control of him beyond this year, maybe send him to AAA next in 2025. And then this is a long-term play by the Nets. Ultimately, there's still a somewhat of a threshold that you need to hit at to be on the roster and to block other guys from the organization from having your bench spot. So there's a certain level that you need to reach. And the question is whether he has enough plate discipline to get on base at like a decent enough clip to like justify sticking around this entire year. It's a pretty bold pick by them, but I like the player a lot with him. If I was in this position, I think I would have protected Nasim just because this is one of the better position player prospects in the system that the Marlins have, and you lose him for a small cash payments at this point. That's kind of the bigger takeaway here. Even there's a good chance that he comes back eventually. For the moment, this is a significant piece of your already pretty bleak farm system that is out of the equation and on a division rival for the moment.
Yeah, Jab, almost the same question to you. Just losing Nasim Nunez, maybe also what the Marlins are losing. And do you think his skill can translate to the major league level? I know Kevin was saying offensively he's might struggle a bit, but do you think he'll struggle a bit now at the majors? Do you think it'll be a bit of a learning curve for him?
Yeah, I think it definitely will. And it's kind of just like what Eli said, where, he is a really, really good defender, best in the Marlins system in the infield, elite speed. So, he's got those two tools going for him, but it's just been that hit tool. And it's just like what Eli said, it's either single or walk is really the way he gets on base. And I think I think it was 200 innings. He had the third lowest ISO in the Southern League. So, you have a pretty large sample size of guys to go with that. And, being the third lowest in that number is, I don't know, it's not really promising if I'm looking for the Nationals in the sense of producing in the big league level. And I think, just sitting here thinking that it's an interesting team, in my opinion, for the Nationals to pick him up, especially being an infielder, with them having Yo-Yo Morales, who they just previously drafted, and Brady House, who I think was their first-round pick 2 years ago. And I'm probably missing out some other infield guys, but those are two, guys who can fit in the infield who, their number one tool is hit. And I think, and it's unfortunate for Nasim that I think that they would look, if those guys can keep producing, those two other guys more than him solely off the hit. And that's why, just because, he's such a nice guy and he played and produced solid with the Marlins. I hope that he can figure out the hit tool and find his way out there, but I think that is what's holding him back right now. So, yeah.
I mean, it wouldn't be shocking if Nasim doesn't even get to opening day with this team, just given the issues. I mean, this guy, unfortunately, and he gets on base at a very high rate, and that's one thing that maybe the Nationals look at and they say, we'll keep him on. But aside from that, and the speed, I mean, and the defense, obviously, the guy can't hit. And at the end of the day, you need to hit this at the big league level. And we'll see what happens during spring training. But as you mentioned, they have some really good prospects in this system that, especially in the infield, I mean, we'll hear from whoever made this choice soon enough, but from the Nationals side, and we'll find out more during spring training just why, they decided to go someone like Nassim. I expected him I had a good feeling he would go in the draft. I just didn't think he would be a Washington National. Really weird scenario for him, but again, we wish him nothing but the best, and he will be one of the better defensive shortstops in baseball.
Here's one. Maybe not a prediction. Does Nassim Nunez hit a major league home run this season?
Ooh.
Right? Perfect. Is also perfect for Carver. For everyone. We just came in perfect time, Carver. Does Nassim Nunez hit a major league home run this year?
He's still muted. I would lean no. Just because the opportunity is probably going to be limited with him. I lean no on that, unless it's an inside the Parker, which is possible.
I think the inside the Parker is more likely than the out of the park home run, to be honest. So
he'll hit a spring training home run. There we go.
Okay. Moving on from Nassim Nunez, let's talk about the player that we are keeping. Alex Carver was still celebrating. He's still celebrating this decision. That's Troy Johnston staying with the Marlins organization. Alex, why did Troy not get taken?
I don't know. I really don't know. They know something we don't. Like I think Isaac mentioned today that he said Ben Dix only said that he expected Troy like a 20% chance to go. I don't get it. I think he's major league ready right now. The limitation is defense. We all know that. He first learned first base like 2 years ago. He can play the outfield, but it's not a strong suit for him. So yeah, that would be my only thing to mention on Troy is that he does not have defensive versatility. But man, he does a lot with the bat. So yeah, I mean, some of that had to be, I guess, related to hitting in a hitter-friendly environment with Jacksonville, but guy does everything right. He says the right things. He works really, really hard. He shedded poundage this past year to get into the shape that he was. He was a lot healthier, and nobody wanted him. So I'm ecstatic that he's staying with the Marlins. They need first base depth. This guy will come to spring training with what I think should be a very good chance to make the team coming off the bench as the secondary first baseman.
Yeah. Jab with Troy. What does his future look like in the Marlins organization? Could he come up ASAP and be maybe the backup first baseman, or do you see him have the Marlins sticking him for another season at AAA?
I think that's what you said first is exactly what's going to happen. Where I think right off of spring training, he's going to be the backup first baseman. I mean, all you have to really do is look at this year and the past years to see that all he does is hit. And I feel like he's going to be the guy where, if Bell needs an off day or whoever's playing first needs an off day, he's going to go in there and he's going to go 1 for 3 with a RBI. He's just going to come in and produce hitting wise. And I think that's what's going to be best for him right now is being the backup and kind of show that he can prove it. And I'd be fine with him in that spot. I'd like that a lot, actually. And I just feel like he's always going to produce no matter the situation. He's going to come in and hit. So.
Yeah. And with Troy also to look at one of the older prospects in the Marlins organization, 26 years old. So maybe that can also have been a reason at some point. Maybe teams didn't want to use the pick on Troy. Kevin, for you with Troy, how do you like him in the major leagues? Do you think he'll have a great spring training? What does Troy's outlook look like for 2024?
I don't know. I think I'll say what Carver said. I really don't know. This guy needs to just hit. Honestly, he needs to have that Jordan Walker type spring training to actually stay on this roster. He's not even on the 40 man, so I think he has a big he's a long shot right now. And as Peter Bendix mentioned, those 40 man spots are finite in his eyes. So we'll see. They're very pitcher heavy, so they're gonna have to make some moves to get rid of some pitchers from the 40 man, and they claimed a lot of guys through the waivers. So we'll see what happens there. He's gonna have to hit. There's no other way to say it. I'm very excited to see if his defense got better. Obviously, that's definitely been an issue and could definitely be a big reason why teams didn't want to take Troy. They may have felt pretty good with the first base situation, and they really didn't see a path for him to be on the major league team for a full 162 games. So I don't know. I'm very excited to see what Troy does in spring. He obviously struggled a lot, and he would tell you that last season during spring. And he has a good chance at, getting a lot more playing time and just showing that he could be a lot better. I mean, we saw it in last year when he went to AAA, he struggled. He struggled a lot. And then he came up this time and things changed. So we'll see what changes he made throughout the offseason. And he has a good chance. Obviously, there's not right now another first baseman unless you want to consider Arise the backup. But aside from that, it's Troy. So
I think between Arise and Berger, that those guys, as currently constructed, that would be my projections. They kind of split the backup first base duties. Maybe Berger more than Arise does. If Arise is still insistent on being a second baseman all the time, that'd be my theory based on how it's currently constructed. I'm not really a big fan of devoting a second roster spot to a first base only guy. They did it with Yuli Gurriel last year, and for the first half of the season, it's like, all right, he gets, because he's good enough defensively, and he was getting all these timely hits. And then as the season went on, we were saying anybody but Yuli. Troy, bring up Troy instead of Yuli, anybody, and he stuck around. They're able to get through it. That is generally, it is tough to pull that off unless your backup first baseman is also a great hitter. So Troy is somebody that I think it is a possibility. But I think on the outside looking in for opening day, and as frustrating as it must be for him, considering how old he already is, this is the path for him in 2025 to be a big role on the team. That is obviously very clear because Josh Bell is going to be a free agent. Kind of no matter what happens this year, it'll be difficult to imagine Bell sticking around. If he has a great year, he'll be out of the Marlins price range. If he has a poor year, then they might say we might as well roll the dice with Troy on a league minimum deal with all those years of control coming ahead of him. So I think one way or another, they'll have a different first baseman. It could be after the trade deadline. It could come sooner if they fall out of contention and they flip Bell to another team at the deadline. I think eventually there'll be this big void to fill at first base, and then Troy will get an opportunity to step in. It is a conflicting feeling because I think we were talking about internally when this decision happened a few weeks ago, they left him off. We were all but certain that he was going to get taken by another team. And I think the general sentiment was, well, this is good for him, man, because we like him so much as a person and we admire so much what he's done. And we feel he's totally ready for a big league shot. And it's great that he gets it. And now he's in the situation. It's great to have him stick around. And as I said, there is still that path for him to have a significant future with the team if he waits his turn, I suppose. But it is frustrating because I felt like he earned his spot. And it is that contrast between our thought process and seemingly almost every other front office in baseball. It is kind of confounding to me that not one of them, so many of them had open roster spots. So many of these teams have directives to save money this upcoming year. You see the headlines. A bunch of teams are looking to cut payroll this upcoming year. One way to do that is to try out, a rookie first baseman DH who has a great hitting track record in the upper minors and see what you got instead of paying 8 figures for an older DH in free agency, something like that. I just thought one team would say, let's take a flyer on him and at least see what he has in spring, given how small commitment it is to make a Rule 5 pick. So yeah, really surprised, really conflicting. But I think all things considered, it is good for the Marlins to at least still have this option with him, to still have him under control and then reevaluate in the future.
Yeah.
And then all the teams that passed late, right? Like so many teams passed. I mean, it's $100,000 and you got so many teams that passed late on potentially adding that bat to their 26-man is a little confusing to me. Like I said at the beginning, I'm obviously not a GM, but they must have something that we don't outside of the defensive inflexibility that comes with Johnston, because I can't imagine that every team in Major League Baseball would, or the other teams in Major League Baseball that are not the Marlins, would pass on, like you said, by taking a flyer on his bat. This is very, very confusing, but maybe there's a factor that we don't know.
Does Troy get taken if he was Nasim's age?
Yeah.
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 All things
Okay.
being the same, if he's 3 years younger, I would think so.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. I don't know. Probably to answer your question, Daniel, but like I said, I think he's got a chance at least. Maybe not out of spring training, like you said, Eli, but I think he definitely has a chance to at least make his big league debut with the Marlins sometime this season.
Can only hope.
I want to talk about the other players that weren't taken by the Marlins, and were there any of them that maybe you were a bit surprised weren't taken? I know Will Banfield's name came up a bit. His power surge. Luisbert Arias, really good with Double-A Pensacola. Were there any players you were surprised maybe weren't taken? It could be in the major league portion or even in the minor league.
Not really. I mean, Banfield is the only one that I'm a little bit surprised, but I don't think a catcher was taken in the Rule 5 this year, or major or minor league portion. So that's the only one. He had a really good year, but again, it's only one good year offensively. So obviously it makes sense. Not obviously, but it makes sense that teams would pass on him, just given that you want to see consistency going from one year to another. And that's really about it. I thought maybe McCambley, but that's really it. Really, no one that really shocked me that was taken.
Of course, they protected, just to remind people, they protected Victor Jr. and they protected Anthony Maldonado, both guys that would have been available had they not gone on the 40-man. And I think those were both good choices to err on the side of caution with them. But other than that, these other players are also Rule 5 eligible, just scrolling through position by position. And
no one took Mangum.
Mangum's even older than Troy is.
Yeah, right.
But then again, in the minor league phase, we might get to that in a moment. The Marlins picked a guy in the minor league phase.
We'll get to that.
He actually has a lot in common with Mangum, just in terms of his backgrounds from the Astros organization, and also a senior citizen, just like Mangum is.
That's a perfect segue. Perfect segue, Eli. So let's talk about the 5 selections they did make during the Rule 5 draft. All 5 were in the minor league portion. First, you have Martinez from the Mets, outfielder. Marty Kosets from the Astros, outfielder. Sean Roby, Giants, infielder. Adam Lasky, Cubs, left-handed pitcher. And Julio Delon from the Mariners, pitcher. So 5 selections, 5 new names, new faces we have to learn. Let's start with you, Jab. Any of these guys that you like maybe now or even before they were even taken, any of these names really stand out to you?
Yeah, I think the most interesting one is Costas. Was that the second? Yeah, in the second round. I thought he was the most interesting in my opinion, just because an older guy like Johnston, and it was kind of weird to see him get taken but not Johnston because of how I think he's older actually. I think he's 27, but I think he's the most interesting just because he's had a super up and down minor league career, undersized. I think he's 5'8". And it seemed like just looking today, like earlier in his career, he was doing really good in A-ball, got caught up to Double-A, produced, and then it seemed like in around 2022, he kind of hit this wall, which was kind of weird to me. I don't really have that much background on him, like if it was an injury or something, but I think that's the most intriguing to me just because of his past success. He's obviously an older guy, which extremely older guy. But I think that could be somebody out of there that could potentially have some sort of future. But like I said, I like his previous success. The numbers looked really good when I saw them. And hopefully very quickly because of his age, he can figure it out again. So.
Yeah, I looked him up really quickly, and apparently he has a side hustle as a music producer. Like he actually has produced albums for you guys. Well, I guess I'll dive more into that as we get to know him a little bit better. But as somebody that's been around a while and probably he's been stuck at AAA for I think each of the past 3 years. He said sometime at AAA. So I think he's like kind of recognized that if they don't appreciate me and aren't going to give me a shot in the majors, I want to focus on my efforts to doing other things as well. So he seems like somebody that's a well-rounded person, even outside of baseball. The one that stuck out to me is Martinez, just 21 years old, played at low A last year, a league average hitter while being he was 20 this past season. He turned 21 at the end of the year. Massive dude as well. Let me play the video of him hitting a homer to dead center in one of these FSL ballparks in the Florida State League. huge guy. Listed at what 6'3", 242 pounds. He looks a little slimmer. Maybe he was chubby when they signed him as a teenager and he slimmed down a little bit. So he really jumps out to me. And I think it was Isaac that reported that the Marlins themselves, they had him circled as essentially their number one target in the minor league phase. So he was in the FCL for a couple of years. He was terrible in his first taste of the States. Dominican player. This past year, he was playing a lot of first base and a little bit of right field. So this is one where you're really betting on the bat and him continuing to hit well. He, especially against right-handed pitching, pretty impressive. So, like, if nothing else, maybe there's a future platoon guy here that has big power, but some other limitations, and that would be something. As we've covered in the last couple Rule 5 picks, the Marlins have gotten some interesting guys in the minor league phase. It was Charles LeBlanc 2 years ago. It was Dane Myers last year. But this one, I would say, has even a little bit more upside because of how young he is. So I'll be fascinated to follow his progress.
Yeah, he reminds me a lot. And I think actually this guy went by the name Ural for a while. He reminds me a lot of Urar Encarnacion. The big power dude. He's going to strike out a ton. But hitting home runs like this that you see on the screen that's off the batter's eye, which is insane in St. Lucie. Hitting home runs like this in pitcher friendly environments sticks out. So this is going to be a power first threat. He strikes out a lot, but like I said, he reminds me a lot of Urar, younger version of Urar, but similar size and similar build as where Urar was at his age. So that's who he reminds me of. If you want to make a Marlins related comp, he reminds me of him. But definitely a good flyer to take on a very, very young player, like Eli said, that's already at the single A level at age 21. That's right around average age for that level, but only 3 years into his big league career. Maybe they could build this guy up to be something special. So it's a good flyer to take, and I like that pick a lot. So that's the one that stuck out to me. The rest of these guys, I looked a little bit into their stats. It's, I would say, at the best for what you're hoping from them. Maybe they prove me wrong, but more replacement level guys, but you need depth as well. So it's fine. Sucks to lose Nassim, but I like this guy, Martinez, as well, like Eli said.
Yeah, I think you guys basically touched on everything. The only other thing I will add is that his opposite field stuff is pretty good. It's way over the MLB league average, which is 24.8. Now, given he's playing in the bigger sample size, so that maybe could be the case, but he was at a 32.4, which is very good. Way over the league average. That's for Martinez. And then the only other name I'll touch on a little bit is Sean Roby. I was reading stuff, and he actually seems like he was on track to be a pretty good prospect until just, I guess, age. He played in a couple levels this year, I think, due to injury. Didn't spend too much time in AAA, but this guy strikes out a lot, as I think we will touch on in a bit. But he has a lot of power. He's a big power guy. He's the third baseman, so I don't hate it, and I think way over the league average as well when it comes to opposite field percentage. So I like him. Obviously, 25 years old, so still time to see what this guy could be. Probably will start at AAA for Miami this year. And then the other one that had a very, very good Arizona Fall League was Adam Lasky, who had a 1 ERA in 9 innings pitched, 15.0 K per 9, 2.0 walks per 9. He struggled a little bit between a couple throughout the 3 minor league affiliates he played with this season. But aside from that, I mean, if he's a high strikeout guy, then yeah, we'll take that any day. And obviously, Miami's very well known for developing pitchers and specifically relievers. They get them to the big leagues pretty quick. So I don't hate their selections by any means. We'll see what happens. And they got some depth, and on top of that, they got really good. Hopefully, what could turn into a pretty good prospect in Ural Martinez.
Yeah. So you think maybe just for you, Kev, Lasky might be the guy who might get to the major leagues quickest between those 5 guys, if you had to guess, if you had to bet? He might have the stuff to get himself to the majors out of the 5 guys.
Well, out of the pitchers, the only 2 pitchers, yeah, probably him. Hitters, I mean, probably Costas.
He's been knocking on the door a while with Houston, so yeah, maybe he's the one that's closest.
Yeah, he seems like a pretty slim guy, pretty quick, but mainly he spends most of his time in left field. He has played all 3 spots, but He's been a left fielder for the most part. And I am interested to see what they do with ERL, by the way, because he spent most of his time at first base this past season with the Mets affiliate. So maybe they'll just have him, do that little rotation there between first and right. But I don't hate keeping him at first. This team really lacks players at first base, and they're having to move Barry there, which makes sense. But they're having to make a lot of moves there to put guys at first, and maybe he could stick there throughout the rest of his minor league tenure.
All right. I think with that, it's a perfect time to go into the break. And when we come out of it, we're going to talk about the winter meetings, Peter Bendix, and the Marlins getting the 16th overall pick. So stay tuned.
I'll give you something to go into the break. We didn't have an organized flip fish in here, but Kevin brought it up to me before the show about with Nassim going to the Nats, there was an opening on their top 30 prospects list, and Pipeline likes to update it immediately. We were all caught by surprise by who it is that they put in as the new number 30 prospect, filling out the back ends with Nassim going out there. So we'll give the people an opportunity to guess who's Pipeline's new number 30 Marlins prospect, one who slid into the top 30 list now that Nassim, at least for the moment, is with another organization. Those are some of the names right above this player. It's a right-handed pitcher, estimated time of ETA for reaching the big leagues in 2026, 6'4" right-handed pitcher. Can you guess who that is? I guess we'll find out on the other side of the break.
Wonder who it could be.
Our mystery player is this guy, Nigel Belgrave, 2023 draft pick, who a reliever at the University of Maryland. Pretty shaky performance over there, but I do remember, I don't know much about him, but he was a day 3 draft pick, and I remember seeing some interesting buzz just about the quality of this stuff and the way that it could play if made just a couple tweaks. And so we pitched a little bit in the FCL last year, a bit in low A Jupiter. He's already on, at least in Pipeline's opinion, they put him on their top 30 list. I don't think we're quite as bullish on him yet, given the small sample, given just the inconsistent track record of performance he had even in college. But there we go. Got us
a good start in Jupiter, but that's about it. Should start there again this year.
All right, Nigel Belgrave there. So let's go ahead and talk about a little bit of the winter meetings when we wait till Jab to get back. Then we'll talk a little bit about the draft. But winter meetings, we had Isaac over there, and it sounded like a lot of nothing really happened in terms of the overall winter meetings. We're still seeing where Juan Soto may go. We're seeing where Ohtani may go. And I think am I frozen?
Yeah, you are frozen.
Oh,
we can hear you.
Oh, okay.
Just keep talking.
All right, I'll keep talking. I'll let Kevin speak, and then I'll try to hop off and come back in. But Kevin, talk to me a little bit about overall what you saw on the winter meetings from the Marlins side. I know Peter Bendix was there. It seemed like he was just talking to everybody. What did you hear from him? What did you like hearing from him? And maybe the biggest outlook you saw from the winter meetings on the Marlins side?
Yeah, so obviously the first thing that was mentioned was I guess the biggest thing that was mentioned was the AJ Puck thing. Now they're going to try to stretch him out as a starter. If anyone here recalls, I mean, right before he was dealt to Miami, he was expected to stretch out, and be a starter for this Oakland A's team that, it wasn't going to be very good. So may as well try to see if he could get something out of Puck on that end. Obviously, he's dealt with injuries before. So I was looking back and checking, the last time Puck was a starter, and you have to go back all the way to 2015 when he was with Florida. So he went 9-4. He had a 3.81 ERA, and he had a 12.0 K per 9, 4 walk per 9. So that you're gonna have to look back from 2015 all the way till you even started at the minor leagues as a starter, you're going to have to look back all the way to like 2017. After that season, he was no longer a starter. I don't hate it. The Rays are known for this. Look at Jeffrey Springs. He was one of the more noticeable names who was a reliever before, pure reliever. He goes into being a pitcher now, a starting pitcher. So, yeah, I don't hate that. And then obviously there was the Xavier Edwards development there. We heard Skip mention that the outfield would be part of his plans. Then you had, I believe it was Peter Bendix mentioned that it'll be shortstop. You'll get every opportunity possible. So I won't say there's a conflict there early on in the winter meetings, or at least in the tenure of Bendix and Skip. But definitely something to keep an eye out on. Just see where he does end up going in spring trainings. But Peter likes him a lot. Peter likes Xavier Edwards a lot, and that's what we understand. And that's really about it. Really, no other move aside from a couple minor league signings. I know we had some Rays reliever signed the other day, and the Marlins have the 16th pick of the draft, which is pretty cool. But aside from that, it was very, very bad.
Moving a little too fast. I want to talk about Puck for a little bit because this is fascinating. It's even though it was something that we were aware of last year when he himself explained that the A's want him to prepare as a starter and they were experimenting with that. It caught us a little bit by surprise that they're going to do this now. And it is the decision, as you mentioned, it has been many years since he was last a starter. He was drafted with the dream of being a starter that early in the first round. You don't spend that type of pick as the A's did unless you think he has a relatively good chance of being a starter, but the injuries got in the way, and just watching him, that really the third pitch never really came around aside from his fastball and his breaking ball. But now you have the situation with the organization being run by a former Tampa Bay Ray. And in recent years, it's always something different with the Rays. They do so many things well. In the last couple of years, what has stood out is this really unorthodox tendency that they have to take longtime relievers and turn them into serviceable starters, or even more than that, great starters. The most recent example with the Rays was Zach Littell last year, who people were probably aware of, but nobody had any opinions about him. He was just a journeyman middle reliever swingman type. And last season, when their rotation was depleted, he was an above average starter for them the second half of the year. The more notable example, Jeffrey Springs, same type of guy where he had been on a couple different stops. And even when he came over to the Rays originally, he was a reliever. The past couple of years, first in 2022, he had a bit of a breakout. They extended him. He was looking even better in 2023. And then he blew out his elbow and he's going to miss some time. When he was pitching, he looks like maybe a number 2 starter, if not comfortably a number 3 type of guy. You usually don't see this where other teams kind of punt on you as having a deep enough pitch mix or throwing enough strikes to be a starter. And the Rays have now had these several examples. Those guys, also Drew Rasmussen, especially in 2022, he's hurt as well. But those guys going from reliever to full-fledged rotation member, maybe there's something that he can bring from being around those type of players that can apply to Puck. With this team at this time, given somewhat of the concerns about their rotation depth, especially that they trade one of their conventional starters to get a bat, if you could potentially backfill some of those innings with somebody like Puck and get anywhere close to league average results, it's a pretty big win. And it's at a time where the Marlins, one of the strengths of their pitching staff in particular is lefty relievers in the back end of their pen. You can't do much better than Tanner Scott and Andrew Nardi. Even Steven Okert, fine, where they can afford to take a lefty reliever and stretch them out and experiment with it. So that is, yeah, I'm not super optimistic that it's going to work, but I do think it's a worthwhile experiment.
Yeah, let me ask Jab this. About AJ Puck. Do you like him going as a starter role, or maybe would you have liked to see them maybe try out another player aside from AJ Puck and keep him in that reliever setup type role?
Yeah, I think it's definitely worth a shot. And all you have to do is just look back to his time at Florida in college and see that his freshman year, he posted like a 3.2 ERA, low FIP. His sophomore year, he posted like a 3.9, 3.8. And then his senior year, he posted like either a 2.9 or a 3 flat ERA. So he's been proven that he can start and that he can throw a large amount of innings in the college realm. So he's able to throw innings. He's able to succeed at that. And I think it's worth a shot. The Marlins always seem to find a way to develop a third pitch for guys that need it. And I think the worst thing that could happen with doing this with Puck is you just move him back into the pen. And then maybe the way that they've built him up, he could be kind of a 3-4 inning, kind of like a George Soriano option, which still wouldn't be that bad. But like I said, at the worst, he's just going to go back to the bullpen. And at the best, he could be, in that rotation. So I like it. And I think it's definitely worth a shot.
And I'm glad you mentioned Soriano because Danny asked what other players. Soriano was a starter not too long ago. I mean, just look back at, I would say just a year ago, he entered the season as a starter for Pensacola, if I recall. So, and he's been a guy who's gone very long innings for Miami this past year. So, and for the most part, he was pretty good. Remember that Uri start against the Braves where it was an absolute blow up. They relied on Soriano, and he put that lineup pretty well. So, yeah, that would be the only other name I would consider. I don't want to say Devin Smeltzer because, geez, that would be rock bottom for this team. But they re-signed him today, and so yeah. Oh, you had
minor league signings that they were Smeltzer and also Matt Andres. I forget how to pronounce his last name. Who was with the Rays for many years as well. Maybe a coincidence, maybe not. Most recently was with the Dodgers in AAA last year. Didn't pitch particularly well. Hasn't pitched in the majors since 2021, Andres. But yeah, he used to be a starter. More recently, he was a starter last year in AAA. But these are just more depth arms to bring in. So we're getting like a clear picture of the spring training NRIs. Smeltzer, Andres, and of course, weeks ago, they signed Tristan Gray. More recently, it was that other pitcher that they signed who had been with the Mariners organization that could
Ryan Jensen?
Not Jensen. He was
Kyle
Tyler. Kyle
Tyler.
Oh, that's right.
We think he has a non-roster invite. Yeah. So among them, probably missing somebody. They still need to add some more catchers to that group, but it's slowly getting a clear picture in terms of what camp is going to look like, even when there's still these big elephants missing from the roster in terms of an actual major league catcher and perhaps a shortstop, among other guys.
Yep.
We'll get to that in a bit. I want to ask Jab, the Marlins getting the 16th pick, went up, actually, I believe, 3 spots. They were slated to get the 19th, went to the 16th. I don't know how both Ohio teams got first and second. That's we'll probably talk a little bit about that also. But looking at Baseball America right now, they have Miami projected to get Jacob Kozar, catcher from North Carolina State. Jab, we had you for the draft. How do you see the Marlins going up the 16th pick? They're right smack dab in the middle. Just how do you see them projecting there? Maybe what kind of players can the Marlins look at? And do you believe maybe any of the top guys might fall to the Fish?
Yeah, I would say that I was surprised that they even moved up. I didn't think that you could do that through a playoff team, so that's awesome. But I think one guy that could potentially fall, I think he's slated around, like 12, 13 in there, is Charlie Condon from Georgia. I know he's playing third and left field this year. He was a first baseman last year. But I think that would be, in my opinion, the first pick for the Marlins. If they would be able to get him and he would be able to fall, just because he didn't play his freshman year, got redshirted, came back last year, his redshirt freshman year, technically his sophomore year, and hit 25 bombs in that year. And he just hits. It seems like he gets better with velo. He hit 470 with a 1500 OPS against 95 plus fastballs, and then hit, I think, 340 with a 1.8, 1.7 OPS against 85 plus sliders. So it just seems like as the pitching and as the stuff gets better, so does he. And maybe if he plays a solid third base and left field and he can show that and he still drops, that would be even better. That would make him my top. But I think, and I tweeted about it the other day, a guy that I would like to see them get with the first round pick is Anthony Silva from TCU. Insane glove, really good glove at short. Slash 330, 416, 471, 14 doubles, I think. Had only 8 home runs, but a pretty slender frame. I think you can build on that, which would put him, into my opinion, into the 20 home run range if he makes it to the big league level. And 88% end zone contact rate, which is awesome for a guy who pretty much last year was his first year. And it seems like every video that you watch from the regionals, from all the way to their way to Omaha, it was anytime there was a big moment, he was the one hitting and he was the one delivering, which is awesome to see. And I think right there that his ceiling would be an above average everyday shortstop, which I mean would be awesome for them to be able to get finally with their first round pick. So
yeah, so you think they will go position player? You don't think that the Marlins will continue the trend? I know DJ's gone now of getting pitchers in that and just developing that, or maybe are there any top pitching prospects also the Marlins could look at just because of their draft history?
Yeah, there's one guy that I like that would probably be around 16, Trey Savage from TCU, full arsenal, already built, did super good, produced well last year. I think he would be somebody that they would probably look at because he's pretty close to big league ready, especially at 16. But I think this year and the type of position players that are available in the 16 area, I think it's smarter to get a position player at 16 and potentially get kind of like a Drew Beam guy from Tennessee with the second round pick. And I think you're able to get, or even a Tyson Neighbors from Kansas State at that point. I think you can make a better position player selection at 16 and kind of get somebody that's a set in stone prospect there. And then there's very solid pitching guys that'll be available with their second round pick. So
just
I'll
keep
just
in
step
mind
in to say that the Marlins aren't going to do much until they actually hire a new director of amateur scouting to replace DJ Spilling.
Maybe they have Jab do it.
Right.
It sounds definitely
there's time. There's time. We are still 9 months away. 9 months? 7 months away? 7 months away from the draft. Only 7 months, not 9.
Just keep in mind that this is a different guy. It's not Kim. It's not DJ. It's not best player available anymore. They won with a pretty good high school prospect last draft. I believe a high school guy, and I believe that's the route they've gone for a couple of years now. Mm-hmm. They've been going high school, so I'll have to look back, but wouldn't surprise me if Miami were to go high school here. Obviously, they want to win, so it's a different case. But Tampa, obviously, I mean, we've seen what they've done, so we'll see what happens. Still very premature to be looking at the draft, but especially until we see who they bring in to replace DJ. And I mean, even closer, we haven't talked about it, but they still haven't replaced Adrian Lorenzo's role. So that's coming that's like in a month. So so that I think that's a little more concerning right now than DJ's role.
Yeah, just a myriad of options the Marlins could go at with 16, catcher, pitcher. But again, we'll see how these players can do as we go into the college season, the high school season again. Who knows? A guy can come up, be a top pick, could have another guy fall, a guy might not declare. It could be a myriad different of things. So we'll get into that and maybe talk a little bit before we finish off with predictions. I want to talk about free agency and trades that did happen or have happened so far in major leagues, this overall winter meetings. It seems like the biggest trade was Alex Verdugo going from Boston to the Yankees. The Yankees also looking like they might get Juan Soto. It just depends on the medicals. It just looks really iffy there if it might happen there. But Verdugo was a guy I believe we even talked about potentially the Marlins can look at it and trade for. That was a guy that could go out there, play nice outfield, could give you a couple nice offensive traits there. But Kev, what have you liked so far this winter meetings? And maybe Alex Verdugo, one of them, and looks like the Yankees are putting out an insane outfield if they can get that Juan Soto deal to finalize.
Yeah, I mean, it's been pretty boring. I'm not even going to lie to you. I think the biggest move has been this Alex Verdugo one. Obviously, we had Craig Kimbrell today. I think towards like the afternoon, he signed with the Orioles on that 1 year, $13 million deal. So good for him. We had, funny enough, Adam Simber, former Marlin, signed with the Angels. Like that kind of tells you what the winter meetings have looked like. But yeah, I mean, good for Yankees making big moves, and they have to. I mean, they got to compete in a division that is arguably maybe the best in baseball. So yeah, very, very slow thus far. Really, the holdup has been Shohei, and just waiting to see where he finally goes. And I want this to be over. I want him to choose the team so we could see what other moves we get out here. I mean, it looks it's between the Blue Jays and the Dodgers. Obviously, both as reported, both teams have met with Shohei, and that's really all we know. I mean, we'll see. I just want to see the number. I want to see how much Shohei ends up getting, because keep in mind, I mean, he may only be hitting this upcoming season, but he's a pitcher too, and he's going to pitch for God knows how long. So should be interesting, should be fun. Hopefully he becomes a Blue Jay. That would actually be pretty cool. But yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, I've never been a fan of Verdugo. There's just something about his face that I don't like. He's been a fine player. He's been a relatively high floor player. He's like a solid average regular, if not a little bit better than that this past year. That's fine. To me, it was interesting because, just to answer TP's question about the trade package, the Yankees sent 3 pitchers, a major league ready reliever, and then a couple pitching prospects that maybe have a chance to be starters if things go right. Like 3 pitchers that were all like relatively low value, but I think it sets up an interesting template for what somebody like Tyler O'Neill might get on the market. Tyler O'Neill, he also has 1 more year before free agency. He's coming off a weaker year than Verdugo, but he's also cheaper. I'd say his upside is a lot higher because of what he showed when he was last fully healthy for a season in 2021. He's being pretty publicly shopped by the Cardinals. They've made it pretty clear that there's no role for him with them, and they're pitching in return. So I think trade value wise, he'd be very similar to Verdugo, and I'm really interested in him, even though he'd just be a 1-year guy and he doesn't address the really urgent needs that the Marlins have at short and catcher. I think he could be your primary left fielder. He could be your backup center fielder for Jazz, and you could DH him on other days in order to keep him fresh, just knowing that he's had some injury history before. He's one of the few guys that you can realistically acquire that could potentially replicate the kind of power that you had from Jorge Soler, that we expect they're not going to be able to re-sign Soler. And he's somebody that has that, you could say, even slightly more potential, just because he's a better athlete, he's a better base runner than Soler, and he's a better defender. That is another part of the pie here with the Marlins. If they're not going to be able to fill out their lineup with a Yankees type of talent in terms of hitters, the defense and the base running are going to be really important. I felt the Marlins were kind of lacking in those areas last year. So I'll have an article, I think, on Tyler O'Neill by tomorrow about just that potential deal, even though it doesn't solve everything. Well, we're not looking for the Marlins to solve all their problems in one snap. We're looking for anything that brings them closer to being a sensible and somewhat exciting team. Because right now, that's what everybody's frustrated about, is how slow things are moving, and they don't seem to be making huge progress on anything yet.
Yeah, I think it's interesting too, the Verdugo trade, because with these talks of Soto, now you have Judge, you have Verdugo, you have Trent Grisham now that was in that Soto trade, you have Estevan Florial, and then Jason Dominguez had Tommy John surgery in September, I believe, and we saw how fast Harper came back from that. So they could have 6 major league ready outfielders. So I think it'll be interesting to see if they flip Verdugo or Grisham, or if they keep them. Or I just think that whole situation is interesting, and I think I'm going to agree with what Kevin said too, where it's just, the whole winter meetings this year was just kind of boring, and it's just solely because Shohei, waiting to see where Shohei goes, because he's a $500 million man. So.
Yeah, it seems like everyone's just waiting to see where Shohei's going to go. Yamamoto right there, that could be close to upwards of $1 billion just between those 2 players if things really get crazy between all the big market teams. But also for the winter meetings on the Marlins side, did you guys think that they did everything in their power during the winter meetings to get things done? Do you think that maybe they could have done a little more? Was there something that Marlins really should have done during the winter meetings which they did not do?
You would think that they should have done a lot more, honestly. I mean, again, I think Peter said it, and Peter Bendix, he said that this was kind of a team bonding event for him, which, I didn't appreciate the comment very much, but I get what he means. Obviously, he's very new to this organization. He still needs to get to know everyone. This is the one time he's able to have his whole staff together with him to kind of just get to know each other and, kind of set, see where everyone's at in terms of the team right now. But yeah, you kind of wish they would have gotten a catcher at some point. They still need one. They only have Fuertes on the roster. You need a shortstop right now, and you still need some pitching, because you don't want to keep changing relievers to pitchers. So yeah, they should have done a lot more. I mean, it's obviously a lot is being held because of Shohei, but I really find that weird in terms of Miami, a team that's not even close to getting Shohei. But yeah.
I agree with PJ on this one with Carantini. That's the first significant catcher to come off the board. I saw a report that Gary Sanchez is in talks with the Padres. I don't know if that's a formality or if that's just one team that's at the head of the bidding for him. For the moment, it's tough to get too frustrated just because so many other teams are not doing anything either. So there's most of these players, especially on the trade market, they're also available. And even in free agency, 80-something% of all the guys that were originally free agents are still free agents. So they haven't really missed anything at this point, just moving along pretty slowly.
Yeah. So you're telling me Eric Fede was it the big acquisition during this winter meetings or so far?
Yeah.
But let's talk. I want to do one more topic before we get into predictions really quick, and that's the tweet that John Hammond posted talking about the Marlins in potential trade talks with their young rotation. Talks about the Marlins are listening to offers about Luzardo, Trev, and Brax. Obviously, winter meetings, guys are hearing trade offers. They're listening to whatever other GMs have to. But I found to put out that tweet and to have it known that it's happening. Do you guys put any credence to it? Do you think that they could actually get traded if they're putting it out there for everyone to listen and to look at have the players look at, have Luzardo, Trev, and Brax look at, that they could potentially get traded?
I find it weird that he put Luzardo in there, but again, I mean, if you're listening, you're listening. It doesn't mean you're in active talks with the team trying to discuss players one and then the other. But yeah, I would find it very weird if Miami does end up trading someone like Luzardo. Obviously, I think Cabrera, he's been thrown in trade rumors for the past 2 seasons now, and same goes with Brax. He's a name that wouldn't shock me if he comes up a little bit. But Luzardo's one that definitely surprises me. Yeah. He was, I believe, he was arguably Miami's best pitcher this past season, and so same with Garrett, 2 guys who reached career highs in innings pitched. And then, Cabrera, we'll see how he looks in spring. But yeah, I'm a little surprised. It would have shocked me they trade one of them, maybe, like we saw with Pablo, maybe Cabrera. But aside from that, I'm a little surprised, Luzardo and Garrett were 2 names mentioned there. But again, no real need to mention someone like Trevor in there. I would say his value is right now at an all-time low. So, yeah, I mean, you look at it and it's just listening. It's nothing, it's not the Marlins are in active talks with the team. They're listening and they're going to check what the market looks like. And if they don't like it, they don't like it, and they move on.
Yeah. Obviously, he was talking about Sixto Sanchez and Patrick Monteverde as the more. Those obviously.
Of course, yeah.
It's the same report that essentially the same that Ken Rosenthal put in The Athletic a couple days earlier. Some people didn't see that because it's behind a paywall, but it was the same thing where Ken said they're listening, and then he said he did not source particular. Well, he kind of did. He mentioned Trevor and Edward as guys that they could trade, and it was his opinion and Ken Rosenthal's opinion that Luzardo and Braxton were off limits in those talks. So that was a slightly different interpretation. These are 2 different sentences. He actually screwed up the punctuation. That's supposed to be a period after pitchers. There's one sentence that he's reporting they're listening on their young pitchers, and there's a second sentence where he's not reporting anymore. He's just saying presumably, including, and then giving us names for attention, because that's where you get attention is when you give particular names. He's not even reporting the names. He's just saying he's making an assumption. And we would not be surprised if one of these decent pitchers gets moved in some scenario, especially in light of the developments that Puck is the minor league signings they've made for depth, and also with Puck yet being another potential rotation reinforcement, depending on how things go in spring training, they're going to keep that option open. And that's fine. It's still really early on, and traditionally the free agent stuff happens before the trades happen. So it might be a while to wait for the trades to happen. I think usually that we'll use last offseason as an example. That stuff really got rolling in January.
Yep.
Yeah. It seems like everyone's just waiting for one man to make a decision, and then all the dominoes will fall.
Soon.
Let's get into prediction time. So, Eli, I don't know if we have a new prediction time video.
Oh, I forgot. I guess one more
another day.
One more. The last dance.
came in here. If I didn't delete it, I still have it in here somewhere. Prediction time I made. Yeah, I think this is still it.
This is prediction time.
It's time.
The last time you might see Kim Ang on FOF Live with that prediction time. So for this prediction time, for everyone, I'm going to ask for your 2 predictions. One Marlins related and one non-Marlins related. The Marlins one, who do you think will be the first signing the Marlins make? Major league signing. Who is the first guy you think comes off the board for the Marlins? And then the second one, where does Ohtani go to? And you can include the contract number. I want to hear how crazy you guys get with the contract Ohtani's going to go to. So, if anything, I can start it off. We'll have Kevin think a little bit, because he usually leads it off, but I'll go first. I think the first signing the Marlins make is going to be IKF. I think he fits all the boxes in terms of what they need as a utility position. That means someone's going to get traded. Might not know who, could be John Birdie, but I think IKF becomes the first person to take signed by the Marlins. It's free agency. And I'm going to go Ohtani goes to the Blue Jays. I like the Blue Jays talk to Ohtani. I saw a nice segment there on MLB Network talking about how familiar he is to there, how it was in Japan. And I'm going to go the number. He gets $650. I don't know the years, but I do think Shohei Ohtani gets upwards of $600 million. So I'm going to go $650 for mine. Kevin.
Yeah, so I'm just going to say Marlins will sign Martin Maldonado. They will get their catcher. Unfortunately, not the offensive one, but if you look at just what's been said, it kind of feels like they're going to go that route. And I'll say Shohei goes to the Blue Jays. I don't know a number. I will throw out, I guess, we'll go 580 for Shohei. Maybe I'm underestimating the number, but I think it'll be a Blue Jay. Cool, good fit, and he gets to take over Canada.
All right, Jab.
Yeah, I think Daniel took mine, but I think the Marlins are going to go with IKF for the same reasons. Checks all the boxes, super utility guy, can play anywhere. Just barely average enough for the Marlins to actually put some thought into him. And for Shohei, as much as I want him to go to the Blue Jays and switch it up, I think he's going to go to the Dodgers. Only because the Dodgers only have like $150 million in the books this year. So they got a ton of money to spend on Shohei. They shut down the whole place for him to tour and visit. And I think he's going to go there for 8 years, $520 million.
Ooh. All right. Last and certainly not least, Mr. Eli.
I'll go deep back into our memories when people were actually excited about this player. Marlins free agent signing, first one, Tim Anderson.
Oh, no.
They're going to be the ones who give Tim Anderson a shot on a cheap 1-year deal. And we'll see if they can revive him to a height that all-star caliber level that he was at in the not too distant past. I have Shohei. My original prediction entering the offseason was the Mariners, and that turns like to be a terrible idea because they're, if anything, cutting payroll instead of adding to payroll. So I will go with the easiest answer and say the Dodgers get Shohei Ohtani, $555 million guaranteed for him.
Okay. Something we all agreed on, the Marlins will not go after Shohei Ohtani. I think that's something we all can agree on there. It looks like Shohei is going to get a bag and a half. But for us here on FOF Live, presented by La Pop, for myself, Daniel, Eli, Kevin, Jab, Tim Anderson, potential Marlin, we'll see. But as always, stay tuned and always go fish.